If you were unfortunate enough to sit through my Apsu review, then you know where this is going. I am CouchGoop and this is my review of Transformers Devastation on the PlayStation 5. Before you get in those comments, here is the spec. It ran at this 2015. Going to very much start at the beginning, because Transformers as a franchise is something I've been fascinated with for well over 35 years. The film cartoon that came out in 1986 is one of my earliest cinematic memories. Back then, I wasn't quite aware of what I was looking at, and if you're up to speed with how this was made, they've outsourced a load of it to Japanese animation studios and really got them to give it this flashy boost. And as a kid, I had never seen anything like it before, especially not on a cinematic level. It also features one of Orson Welles' last speaking parts, and you've got Leonard Nimoy in here doing the voice of Galvatron. One of my favourite Transformers modern G1s. I actually had that gun. I didn't have Megatron, and they rolled out loads of toys with this film, Rodimus included. So I was lucky enough to own some of these, man. I was living the dream. The film also features some cringe as hell songs. You've got Eric Idle in there from Monty Python, the guy that wrote Always Look on the Bright Side of Life, playing a rather close to the wire Asian character. There's a lot to unpack with this film. It also features, spoiler, the death of Prime, right? No kidding. In the opening 15 to 20 minutes, he's replaced by Ultra Magnus and Rodimus because, again, they wanted to roll out the new toy line. It was devastating to everyone. I saw adults in that cinema clutching their mouths at this scene. Imagine doing that to a kid now with a massive franchise, just murdering the lead protagonist immediately. They did not care, and it made it more substantial because of those decisions. And talking of the franchise, you heard me use the expression G1 there. That's Generation 1. Transformers are categorized numerically into the new modern fruitions that Michael Bay gave us. I know Megan Fox is fit as fuck. That man should be sentenced to punishment for what he has done to that franchise. Some of you may be in your 20s and those first Bay films, you know, that are your entry point to the franchise. That's okay. You're not to know that there's greatness in the past. It's a little bit like walking around loving the Alien vs Predator films and not realising about aliens and Alien. We've got the Transformers at home in the form of GoBots. They were a cheaper, what I would consider out-and-out counterfeit version of the original Transformers, and they competed. Of course, the transformation for the actual vehicles and robots themselves was incredibly simple. I'm talking, you just pulled them and then swung the arms around. You could tell an absolute mile off between the two brands, and I owned a few GoBots because they were cheaper and parents don't always get it right. Although I've flat out denied modern Transformers and everything about them, I'm still into YouTubers and content creators that review the really expensive third-party models, so I didn't know too much about this.
Hey, my name is Jobby, and I don't have kidneys anymore.
They are ridiculously expensive. This is Jobby, by the way. He's one of my favourite reviewers on this front. His cuts and his energy. He's also quite a traditionalist with a lot of the models, and his specialty is the Beast Wars, which was like a strange CGI cartoon, and they also pushed out toys around it. But the models, the high-end third-party models around this stuff is just amazing. That Shockwave, you've got Grimlock. You could spend thousands and thousands of pounds on a really expensive Transformers model for your shelf one day, maybe. This is my equivalent of people who look at expensive cars or big houses. I just want a nice Transformers model.
Transformation is also not my favorite. At least it's easy.
Talking of nice Transformers models, and I will be linking all these creators in the comments and the description. You've got 87 Render. Beautiful modern take, 3D renders, really great eyes. Totally worth looking at, and some great homages to the original G1 Transformers. Rodimus has never looked so good. Alright, we better get started with the review. Now, Transformers Devastation is from Platinum. Platinum are a must-own game studio for me, developer. They came up with Bayonetta, of course, they gave us Vanquish. They handled a lot of the mechanics in Nier Automata. They've also given us Metal Gear Revengeance, which is stunning. They haven't given us anything substantial recently. I've got Babylon's Fall review that I'll put in the link. They've been a little bit on the rocks lately, and that's why I've pulled this out, because I want to just remind myself of those peaks. And Devastation is certainly one of those peaks, just not the highest. It's also been brought to my attention that the game is no longer available on the PlayStation Network. This was the case in 2018. Now, Activision are the publisher / distributor, and they have had a license agreement finish with either Hasbro, I think, or the Transformers IP full stop. So the game has been taken off the shelves digitally. This is available physical. I've seen it rocket in price in the last year and a half. If you own this physical, do not take it back. Sit on this for as long as you can. I imagine a lot of you do anyway, and I think this is also available on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Just had a horrendous thought, and it's that if something happens to Platinum Studios, that Babylon game was really awful, and they desperately need to come out with something good. If they ever shut down, touch wood, I hope to God that wouldn't happen. That would probably increase the price on that disc even more. Other Platinum games, before I forget, that aren't Sony or Xbox, Bayonetta 2, and of course Astral Chain, which is such a good Switch exclusive that never came over to any other platforms. A bit of a heartbreaker again.
Megatron, what is the meaning of this?
Why have I bothered reviewing this in 2023 as well, with all those other games out there? It's been a long time since I looked at the game. It was on the PlayStation 4 Pro last time I was firing it up, and of course I haven't looked at it since the license agreement ran out. I had this pang of paranoia that it wouldn't even let the disc function. What is this game like? What's it all about? You mentioned about the peaks and it not being as high. This is a bit like a chef, right, in the Platinum kitchen, and he's got his little bowls of Bayonetta and a little Akami bowl, and he's sprinkling the things in and mixing it around. You've got the Bayonetta L1, or R1 rather, dodge, slow down, like literally generic system in here. Then you've got the sort of slide on knee Vanquish switch to vehicle, which you can do instantly, and it is technically a sprint button, and you can fire into all sorts of things as the car or vehicle form. L2 switches you to your range weapon. Now get this, you've got 4 slots for 2 close quarters and 2 range, and switching on L2 either in the car or walking around feels way too flawless. It's really good going to the shooting mode, and you can blend it in with your combat. There's no real rules with how much you want to jump around and just go crazy with this control system. The game completely enjoys speed and taking you through things at high velocity. You do have to do a lot of backtracking and maneuvering around that initial starter area, but you'll just get used to the idea that it wants to push you down corridors, put you in arenas, and get you to have massive fights with loads of other Decepticons. One of the surprises for me was the variety in different Autobots you have access to, and the difference in their movesets. L1 gives you a special that's tailored for each robot you choose. Prime's got an amazing trailer swing round, and you can bring in Bumblebee. He has a slightly quicker special. Different movesets, you've got hard and fast as the usual setup with a third-person ARPG. Wouldn't say it's class difference, but they'll have different loadouts that you set up. One might have a flamethrower, might have missile launchers on a dude. So this is really cool if you get stuck on a boss, because it will give you the option to switch out which robot you want to play as. A lot of Transformers games, and there are newer ones out there, would sort of lock who you've got to play as in respect to what section of story you're in or something like that. With this, it's just like, no, go out with who you feel comfortable with. The story also concentrates on you fighting key villains more than once in cool scenarios, so you don't just chew through everybody and just get to the finale, which is Megatron. You have to fight him a few times, and a lot of his key henchmen. Soundwave is in here, and you've got all those cool bug dudes, which is just a whole section I fell in love with on its own. Probably hearing and seeing the R1 prompt. This is something you can deliver at the end of a combo. It's not too clear when you've built it up, but when it's there you can start chaining and doing massive damage. Enemies start appearing with shields that you have to smash through. There is a 2-layer of penetration when it comes to beating some guys down. No jokes.
Caltran 1, analyze.
A lot of this nostalgia would be completely worthless if the characters and villains weren't voiced properly, and it's brilliant to hear some of the original cartoon actors' voices in this. We haven't obviously got Orson, but Starscream sounds amazing. Megatron's really well done. You are kind of back in the cartoon days when you see a lot of the cutscenes. Peter Cullen's actually doing the voice of Prime. He went over to Bay's side. We won't talk of it. Might be able to just make it out here, but Sideswipe has got a singular sword now. I've switched that out. It's electric. This is going to be the mind blower. There's a full loot system. Okay, it's not Destiny 2 by any stretch, but you can start blending weapons together. You get loads of it. Switching out Prime's weapons to like some gold axes or a giant hammer, and seeing that moveset change is quite satisfying and pretty damn deep for a Transformers IP. The music is not bad either, right? With more than one bass pedal being at play just about every single boss fight. Now let's get to those. This is the seller for me. So fighting iconic Decepticon giant robots that you played with as toys as a kid in a Platinum game with Bayonetta level of close quarters and Vanquish shooting combat. There's not much else a man needs. That crafting system, if you can call it that, and the loot setup does feel a little bit last minute, and it's not really a game changer. It just adds a bit of spice to what could be quite a two-dimensional third-person hack and slash. The thing that saves this are the arena and boss battle sort of lore and setups, having Soundwave's little panther and eagle coming out on the cassette tape, and just the music, the speed of the range attacks, what you have to do to get out of the way, changing the vehicle to avoid death. It does all kind of work. Wouldn't be a platform game without the odd obligatory shoot 'em up level, get from a mounted gun, and the game takes you through some classic gaming genres. Did it with Nier, and of course with this you have a top-down almost section and a side-scrolling crazy bit with Grimlock. We got Grimlock coming up. The wonderful 101, my god, I nearly finished this video without bringing that game up. That's one of the pillars. How many pillars have we got now? 8, I think. But Platinum, please give us another pillar. And look at me fighting this guy. Hammer on hammer. It does actually incrementally unlock a lot of the playable characters to you. So you start with Prime and Bumble, then you sort of get Sideswipe in, things increase. You get a roster of 5 total. I will say the game has only got 7 chapters. That results in about 6 hours, I'd say 7 hours. But there is a challenge mode, just like all of Platinum's stuff, just like the Vanquish, and that's very cool. Again, this is one of my favourite fights. It's a triple changer, so he goes to a tank and a jet, and you have to use that vehicle to get out of the way of his bombing runs. And notice you can switch weapons right during combat. It's really a comfortable system. I just wish it was a little bit deeper. Dual flame swords though, I mean, that's Megan Fox good. Can you put what G1 Transformers you owned? I know some of you guys are old enough, or did you have to go through a GoBot phase? Also, have you downloaded this digitally since the licensing running out? What happens when you try and run it? Please put something in the comments.
You got the touch. You got the power.
I was, of course, Couch Coop, and a special thanks to everybody that watched that Dragon's Dogma review. My God, I was YouTube famous for a couple of hours that Saturday. It was amazing. I will, of course, see all you G1 lovers down there.
Until that day, till all are one.